How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So on this week's Q&A, we're going to have a couple different questions. And as always, if you want a chance of one of your questions being answered, make sure you guys do drop a comment down below. And I'll try to get as many questions answered. And some of those questions might lead to a full dedicated video to that question and create some new content for the channel. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with the first question. And it is why and how many cases of Tlx Type S transmissions have failed, and there is known cases of it being jerky and kind of what's going on with them. So there is a couple of cases of failed transmissions. Funny enough, or not really funny, but coincidentally enough, they are mostly on stock vehicles, so that is strange. All the ones that seem to be modified aren't having any issues, with the exception of the JB4 modified cars. Some of those guys experience extra jerkiness and just some weird shifting and stuff going on, and that's what happens when you feed the ECU some bad information. But we're not going to get into that. Like I said, there is a couple cases of bad transmissions, maybe a handful, 4 or 5 of them, and that's to be expected with any new transmission. Really, the 10AT has been proven to be pretty reliable across the Accords previously, and the RDXs, etc., and now in the TLX, as well as the MDX and Odysseys, and going further into Honda newer products. So so stuff like that is going to happen. There's a case, I'm in contact with the guy. He's had the trans replaced 2 times, and I believe he's having another issue. So I think there's something else going on there, possibly seeming like something's going on with the trans, or something possibly burning out the trans or the TCM, just causing some weird stuff. But most of them seem to be okay after trans replacement. And again, it's going to happen. Unfortunately, it is what it is. As far as the jerkiness, sometimes with my personal vehicle, as I'm slowing down, and let's say I was cruising and the VCM is between being engaged and disengaged, and maybe it was about to upshift and then it starts slowing down and a downshift. So I just feel like there's a lot of stuff going on there, and sometimes between the PCM and the TCM, they just don't get it absolutely 100% correct. It seems to happen more coincidentally on when the car's in comfort mode or normal, versus like the Sport or Sport Plus, where the trans tends to hold the gear a little bit longer. So that's what I've seen. I've also done my transmission service at 15K, and it definitely fixed some of that. So as this stuff in the fluid wears out, it progressively gets a little bit worse, and the shifts get a little bit more sloppy. So that's why it's important to make sure you maintain your vehicle as best as possible, especially the transmission, engine oil, differential, stuff like that. So I've also done a couple of different and I always get positive feedback. I like to get feedback from the cars I'm working on, to see if it's something that actually works or not. And it's not just me being aggressive, although I am aggressive approaching with all my maintenance, especially on a car that's modified, or you're driving it on the aggressive side. So a couple different reasons. Obviously, something could be going on with the trans. If you feel like that's an issue, just go to your local dealer and have them check it out. And if you're past 15, 20, 30K, definitely could just be the fluid starting to break up a little bit, and you want to get that addressed, as well as some software glitches not really just going on correctly, or whatever the case may be. There is going to be software glitches, and that's something you should still report, because if Honda or Acura doesn't know about it, they might not be able to fix it. Although if there's enough people complaining about it, maybe they'll adjust the software a little bit, and maybe there's a possibility that is addressed. So I hope that answers that question for you. Although I would not be concerned overall. Like I said, the 10AT has been a very reliable, and it's been able to handle a whole lot of power versus what the OEM cars come with. Next question is, what are some early signs of failing starters? So typically what we see is a starter starting to click, or you notice an extra slow crank, although it could be confused, or it could be a bad battery. So you kind of have to, take it somewhere to have it properly diagnosed. You could do some sort of a draw test and see if the starter's drawing more amperage than it should be, and really draining the battery as it's cranking. Now, if the battery's a couple years old, I would obviously get the battery tested. If it lasts more than 3 years, I think you got your money's worth, and you should just proactively change your battery. Anything after 3 years is really pushing it. At least in my area, I don't see any battery really going past like 4 or 5 years, and that's very rare. Typically around a 3 to 4 year mark, they start failing, sometimes a little bit earlier. But once again, if your battery's good and you still have a slow crank, that's early signs of it failing, as well as some clicking, inconsistently start click once in a while. Eventually it leads to it just clicking or nothing at all, and you just will be stranded. So if you start hearing some extra slow cranks, your battery's testing good, your terminals are good, everything's good, as well as some clicking and no flicking from the dashboard, just a single click when you crank it or push the button. And that's an early sign, and you should obviously get it tested and probably get it replaced at that time. All right, so next question is, what is a good aftermarket brand strut? Typically, I like to stick with Hondas, although I will answer the question. Honda struts overall are really good. If they fail, typically it's early on. If not, I've seen them go well into 200,000 miles. They do get a little bit weak, but no leakage and no crazy sloppy over bump action, looseness, or anything like that. But if you do choose to go aftermarket, I would probably choose Monroe. That's a little bit old school, although, back from working with my dad at his independent shop, that's what we used, and we've always had good luck with them. Second part of the question is, do you get them loaded or not? And I would say yes, because a lot of people just install this stuff incorrectly. And if the strut's blown, there's a chance that the spring is on a weak side already, especially if you're changing it and it's got 150, 200K on it. I'd be okay with doing a complete assembly. Obviously if it's just a shock, then it's a shock. But if it's sold as an assembly, like a McPherson type strut, or even for the dual wishbone, just get it like that with the strut and spring assembly together. Just makes stuff easier. It's relatively affordable. If you're doing a Honda setup, then I'll do the strut, the top hat, and the bearing. The spring will probably be okay. But yeah, my choice would be Monroe. If you have anything else that you like to use, please make sure you guys drop a comment down below, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on any experiences with anything else. All right, so the next question is, how reliable is Honda's NA 2.0, so the 2.0 non-turbo that is found in the Civic? And relatively, we haven't had any issues with them. They've been reliable. Honda's all-motor engines are relatively good. Really no big issues, no blown head gaskets, none of that stuff. That's like on the turbo side of things. And we did have one case of a cracked head, but I think it was just some sort of a manufacturing defect, some sort of casting issue that happened, and just some poor casting. Over time it just developed a crack, and that was one case, and I was super shocked when I saw it, and I couldn't believe that the 1.5Ts aren't cracking heads. But here we are. There's this Honda 2.0 K20 NA with a cracked head. So not sure what really happened there, although overall that was very isolated to one incident. And if you do have one of these cars, one of these engines, still, maintain your engine, maintain your oils, all that stuff, maintain the transmission fluids and all that. But overall, they have been great. And if you do own one of those cars with that engine, then definitely you got to go in my opinion, and a lot better than the L15 or the 1.5T. All right, so this is the last question of the week. So if you want a chance to have one of your questions potentially answered, make sure you drop a comment down below, and I'll either answer your question right there, or answer it in next week's video, or make a dedicated video if that needs be. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get to the question. So how reliable are the Honda Civic 10th generation Civic transmissions, CVT in particular? And do I see them going past 200K or whatnot? Now they are CVT, and they're not the strongest transmissions out there, although we probably do maybe 1 or 2 a month, which isn't horrible. We average about 100 to 150 cars a day. So when you put it into that perspective, if you do 1 or 2 a month, it's really not that bad, considering we see so many of them. Now again, they are CVT, so again, not the strongest out there. Maintain your fluid, do it every 30,000 miles or so, unless if you drive aggressively, then a little bit sooner. But 30,000 miles to 45,000 seems about right and okay. And we do not see too many issues with them. But from time to time, we do see a couple. I'd be a lot more worried about the 1.5T versus the transmission. You know, if you follow me on the channel, you know that I'm not a fan of Honda's 1.5T, and they blow head gaskets a lot more often than we see blown transmissions. So if that's your question or concern, then I wouldn't be too concerned with it. And we have seen a couple well over 150, 180, one or two over 200,000 miles. And that doesn't mean that there aren't out there, just I haven't seen them personally, so I'm not going to say I have. But you know, I'm sure there's a couple of them already out there, 200 and K plus miles. So again, maintain the transmission, change the oil or the transmission fluid every 30,000 miles or so. And I think you have a good possibility of achieving that goal of 200,000 miles or so. So with that being said, guys, I'm gonna wrap up the video right here, and I'll catch you on the next video.